As a graphic designer, your portfolio does a lot of the talking for your skills. But in a world where millions of designers are fighting for attention, is a brand name or identity truly necessary? The answer may very well surprise you. Brand identity? What identity? I let my work speak for itself, and that's it. That's Jake, and as you heard, he doesn't actually have a brand identity, and he's been freelancing for over 5 years. That's the first crucial point today. If you're a freelancer, the vast majority of your work is going to come from either freelance platforms or word of mouth and from repeat clients. We'll look at other types of designers pretty soon. The obvious truth that many people fail to realize is when it comes to freelance platforms, designers are judged by their experience, their rating, and portfolio of work. The platform itself promotes the actual designer, which makes the need for a logo or identity almost non-existent. Some designers go the personal route and they use a photo of themselves, while others use a logo to seem more like an agency, which can be a bad move if you're just one person. But does it hurt to have a logo as a graphic designer? We'll talk about branding as a whole very soon. Now, you probably know that a logo is an essential part of a brand, but have you ever stopped to truly think about the purpose of it? Typically, logos are meant to reach a massive audience of hundreds of thousands or even millions of customers and act as a memory hook. But as graphic designers, we typically only have a handful of clients, and also a lot of our clients are repeat customers. So do we actually even need a logo? Is it important for us? Now, a logo might seem redundant to you, especially since many beginner designers fall into the trap of creating a monogram logo using their initials, which often comes across as amateurish. In my experience, having a logo represent yourself as a graphic designer gives out the impression of a corporate agency or a team. But also importantly, as you actually progress in your graphic design career, that same logo might not actually represent who you are or what you do anymore, and it could even restrict you creatively speaking. Not to mention the painfully brutal truth that if your logo looks bad to a client, then that client isn't going to hire you for anything. So yeah, I'd be really cautious of using a logo to represent myself as a designer. However, it's important to remember that a logo is just one small component of an entire brand identity. A brand identity is more than just a logo and some colors thrown together. A brand identity includes a strict color palette, consistent use of typography with 1 or 2 different fonts, and a specific style of imagery and graphics. But it's not just the visuals, oh no. It's also the kind of language and the tone of language a brand uses to communicate with its audience. Think about the difference between, say, how Rolex speaks to their audience compared to maybe something like Adidas. It's going to be very different. Now, think about identity in terms of a graphic designer. Do we actually need one? Or better yet, look at this highly successful agency. On their website and throughout the portfolio of work, we can see a color scheme of purple, black, and white. They use a similar font choice across the board, and the imagery used actually ties together very nicely. They also follow that trend over to their socials as well. Yes, this agency has a somewhat of a brand identity going on, but importantly, did you notice something else? Their work. The work they create has its own identity. It's recognizable as their own work, and it meshes together really nicely with the brand identity. Remember though, this is a highly acclaimed design agency. What can that actually look like for the stand-alone designer? Now here's a pretty successful designer who has some traction on Twitter. Their Twitter profile doesn't have a fancy logo or even their own name. Instead, they're using a Twitter ID and a picture of themselves. But don't be fooled by simplicity. The banner and profile picture work together in a dark and mysterious way that's really captivating and memorable. And if we actually head over to the Instagram page, you'll see they're keeping the black and white theme going strong. It's a bold choice, but it makes them really memorable in the eyes of whomever is interacting with them. So, the question of do you need a brand identity as a graphic designer has an answer that's pretty complex and intricate with different moving parts. It depends on a few factors such as, are you an agency or a standalone designer? Are you a freelancer on a freelance platform? And do you want your own name and your face to represent yourself? What mostly every designer can make great use of is applying brand identity theory to their social media accounts and their posts. And this is because social media is a place to build a community and an audience, which can then lead to gaining more clients. social media does actually change the game a little bit, and it forces us to use branding techniques to stand out from a saturated crowd and just become noticed in that arena. Yes, you can let your work speak for itself, especially if you're a freelancer on a freelance platform. But when you move things over to the realm of social media, things do change a little bit. But hey, if you really want to learn some useful social media hacks as a graphic designer, just click that video on screen. And until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.